Oh, look at that. Community dinner, Day of the Light. Look at the light coming in. That's kind of cool. The community on the Day of the Light. So if you're watching this video and it made it through the edit, then we're looking at May 1st is Beltane, which in the old traditions of the earth it's the halfway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. And there's these sort of power points. And to me, it's when the light is accelerating. The light is getting stronger and stronger and brighter every day. And it's the opposite of the Day of the Dead, where the darkness is getting more and more accelerating every day up until December 21st. So it's what I call accelerating power point this time, right now, this week, actually. So if the Day of the Dead is described as where the veil between the living and the dead is the thinnest, then this is the 6 month prior on its opposite side of the calendar of the year, the seasons. This is the Day of the Life. And it's where in the old native traditions, the water element or the dream, like the dream of the plants, the seeds sprout. And then in Chinese medicine, we go from the water element to water starts to become something, if you will. And this is where that acceleration point, where the becoming something changes from a watery, diffused state to a more solid form. And so there's attributes for that in consciousness, and that's what I'm sort of here to teach is, what's easy, simple, within grasp of human attention and whatnot. So the Day of the Light, then, the attributes of light, as per some different discussions with Adyashanti groups, is we're clear when we're in the light. Things are light. Things are simple. These are the attributes that I'm gonna name, and then we're gonna go around the group and see what other people have to say. And then if someone talks low, then I'll repeat. Because like Day of the Light, it's so darkness is like sticky and confusing and dense and polarized and divided. And so if you go the opposite of that, then light is unified and perceptions come easy. Even choices become easy because there are no choices when we're in the flow. And that's kind of a step down. When we're in the flow, there's no choices, and we step into density, then we have to decide between this and that. That means somehow we've stepped out of the flow and we're no longer at ease. So that's my little piece here tonight. Just real simple. These are parameters that were brought before me about 22 years ago. I spent about 10 years studying, trying to get it. And I feel like I got a good handle on in myself, like how happiness is a choice, and it doesn't just come like in my seeker days. I thought, you find enlightenment and everything's going to be easy. No, it's still work to be happy in today's world or in any world. And as Monica said earlier, the world is so highly polarized right now. This is an amazing time to be alive. And those of us that chose to be here on some level, if that fits within your belief system, then we're in this like carnival of soul theater. And the carnival of soul theater. So, in all the circles I love being in is, you can share if you want, but if you don't want to share, you can pass. And that way you can maintain your own safety. So we'll go around. So the question is, the query is, what is light in you versus what is dark? What's awake versus what's asleep?
Attributes of ourselves that are
yeah. Oh. And this is also based on Charles Eisenstein. Some of you know his work. Thank you, Deanne, for that link you sent me. There was a 5-minute one. I don't know if it was a link you sent me or not, but it was about what I took away from living from the heart, which I always take away from, is what makes us come alive. So what makes us come alive in our life, right? Versus feeling dead. So I was in front of the computer a lot the last couple of months, and I told the guy in Africa that I was working with, too much death in my life sitting in front of this device. Sitting in front of a computer deadens us because we're not meant to do that. It's not a living system. So we have a little minor life three-dimensional reality problem here. That's pretty interesting here. Wow. I'll edit this out later. There's always drama.
It's a wire, but it's not very wire.
Oh, so close. Here. Okay.
Well, it's like that game at the boardwalk. There you got it. It's that game at the boardwalk. Hey, it's on film even.
Now.
Not all the way on there.
Hold it down.
Wait.
No.
Good job.
Okay, so we're going to show that. See there? There's the day of the light.
There it is, hanging.
Oh, and lastly, the intention for why I do this doesn't even come from me. Gathering people together came from some study of my father's lineage, which was Irish Scottish. The lanes were the McLanes. And what does lane mean in English? It's a street, right? So if you were the McLanes, then you were an innkeeper on the lane. And so hundreds and hundreds of years ago, if you were an innkeeper and you were smart, you had entertainment for people, for the community, right? Which was stories and naked ladies and dancing and music.
Of course, naked ladies.
Well, it goes back so far. I'm just naming the way it was, you know. Men, you know, there was a Seinfeld about that actually. That men's naked bodies were sort of utilitarian was the argument, and not beautiful to look at. But even women could look at naked women because they were artful and beautiful. And the male bodies are like,
Well, now the male bodies are like a whole bit.
I think it depends on time in history. The Greeks definitely
The
liked
Greeks,
their-
oh yeah, the Greek gods.
David.
Zeus.
David.
Yeah.
Have you seen David in Italy?
Right.
Oh.
Okay, so we're going to go around. Do you want to offer? And what's light? What brings you alive versus what makes you feel dead?
Well, absolutely what brings me alive is connecting with others and connecting others to others. So like networking individuals to each other. So a prime example is trying to connect people who have interests that would never have been connected otherwise if I hadn't created that connection. And that makes me extremely happy and very peaceful and excited and feeling totally in the light
Sweet.
in this lifetime.
So if you didn't hear, let's do a quick synopsis because I get feedback sometimes
Well,
people
let's
can't
hear
hear.
what you heard.
Yeah, what I think I heard was, you know, I call myself a spider connecting people through a web, and that's kind of what I heard with you connecting people, and that brings you joy to connect things that never would have happened had you not been alive in this world.
Correct, and the image that I usually use is the Lily Tomlin operator from, yeah, where one ringy dingy and you connect, you know, and she misconnects, and it's somebody that they totally need to be connected to.
Aww.
And she's still funny after all these years.
Gail, thank you. Do you have anything that you want to throw in?
Well, I think that there's no high like the Most High, as we like to say, and connecting to God is the ultimate charge. So that makes everything else happy and worthwhile. That's what I like to do. I yield.
That's how you come alive. Thank you.
I can do that.
Drew? Want to share? What makes you come alive?
Learning from past mistakes so I can avoid future ones.
That's good.
Look at that smile. How could you deny that
I
smile?
know, that's good. Those teeth are so nice.
I know.
Your teeth.
Well, the things that I do, I mean, that make me feel alive, make me feel good. One of them is I have a spiritual practice that I've been doing since 1980. And the other thing is hanging out at the beach. When I set my day with my meditations, the first thing I do in the morning, okay, I get up, I go pee, I go back, I sit, I do my meditation, and that has totally transformed my life so that I can deal with stress and, you know, it just keeps me really grounded. So that's a really important one that I've been doing a long time. And then the other things that I like to do is I love to go to the beach. When I'm at the beach, I feel peace. I remember one time my younger daughter, who's we were having a problem with each other, and I took her to the beach, and she completely calmed down, and then everything was fine. And the other thing is exercise. You know, I swim, and when I swim, that keeps me feeling good. I never feel bad after I swim. I go to the gym, I swim for half an hour, after work, then I go to the gym, I swim, I feel great. No matter what
She's a
job.
very physical job.
I'm a massage therapist, I work at Gemini. But I go in shape, I swim, and I'm right with the world. So I guess those three things are really important. And of course, spending time with my kids or with, my dear friends like Annie. And
We
that's
go to the
definitely,
beach,
that's
and she
definitely a
massages
part.
me too.
Yeah, so
6 years.
6 years.
I think, as you get older, hopefully you learn some tools to deal with the world.
And we're both English.
I'm like, I'm very highly sensitive.
Yeah, very.
But I've learned to deal with the world because of the tools I've been so grateful to learn in my life. So that's what gives me joy and happiness, whatever you want to call it, just being with amazing people that also, doing certain practices that keep me in a good place.
So I'm wondering if I'll do my synopsis then. So what I think I heard. So
Okay.
somebody that's watching, because I'll probably edit down I can edit out little clips pretty easily. So the beach and exercise, specifically swimming, which I would agree with you. Every time I surf, I think maybe out of thousands of surfs, I maybe had 2 or 3. I didn't feel better afterwards. And then the kids and just your spiritual practice every day, starting with meditation, which in my world, if I start my day with meditation and yoga, I feel this big, and if I don't do it, I feel this big.
Yeah.
That's basically my lived experience. So why not do it? Right? Why not feel bigger? Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie, what? You care to
riding my
share?
scooter.
Riding a scooter! Going fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
James got skipped. You want to... Any more, Katie? Anything else you want to add?
Oh, that's enough for now.
Okay. James, we kind of got bypassed
Give me
there.
the gist of the 3 things.
Oh, just what brings you alive
Sharing.
versus feeling dead. So the attributes of alive were like you're light and clear and you're whole, you don't feel divided, and you're not polarized, and decisions are easy because you're in the flow of life. Generally a state of ease and satisfaction and contentment, which we know we don't live there, but we can strive to come back. So what brings you to those places?
The past has already happened. The future is uncertain. Be present in the present, because life is the present.
Yeah.
I have realized that I can throw up like 400 different aspects of a lot of different things and land and put them together in the same order. And it's something I've had an affinity for more than 45 years. But as I used to be much more silent and just an observer, I started breaking out of that maybe almost 10 years ago. So what makes me happy is not always saying the first 10 things that come to mind. Trying to have a sense of humor. And there's a variety of things that just give me such a heart energy that I do, that I feel like I can fly often, or a somewhat flaming spear proof.
Will you repeat that 10 thing again? That was I want that one to make sure people.
What's that?
When you're asked your 10, you just don't start with the 10 favorite things. What's up that?
What I mean is, like
That
I
was
said,
fascinating.
sometimes I can have 400 things in my head and then figure out what needs to be done. And I've been good at that for like 45 years. And so a lot of things roll through what I'm thinking about. And I've always had a tangible accountability ever since I became a paid mechanic at 14, which is like 41 years ago. So I'm just enjoying the presence, and I'm enjoying feeling that what I actually do has potential to have a massive impact. Over the past 35 months, I've probably been publicly recorded over 300 times.
Wow.
And that is fun. So I got to address 7 people I knew really well that have heard me speak 150 times. They hadn't heard me speak in 2 years. And you could tell they were comfortable and uncomfortable. It was great. Thank you. Since you asked.
So let's see. So
Wait, I like to live up to when some people say, James, you're a cartoon character.
You're Mel Gibson.
James wants to live up to
No,
people say he's a cartoon character.
Yes.
And how many skills did you guesstimate you had? Because I don't think everybody heard that.
Skills.
No, I started getting paid as a mechanic at 14. And so
Okay, mechanic.
As a mechanic. And I've been doing all phases of construction for 34 years.
But what I also thought I heard,
Specializing in fixing problems.
yeah, what I thought I heard you say was, see, you can get a bunch of stuff thrown at you, and you can bring it all together and come up with a concept to fix it, or a bunch of different problems, or
A critical path, because that's what I've been
okay,
doing for
critical path. That's
over
well
40
put.
years.
Okay,
Yeah, critical path.
excellent. Is that it for you? Is that enough?
Oh
Okay,
yeah, that's
complete.
more than enough. Thank you for asking.
Yes. Got Katie. I guess Orion would be next. Oh wait, who was sitting there? I forgot.
She went to the bathroom.
Right, okay, restroom person. We'll go Orion go.
Okay, well, I'll mention two things. The first one is basically everything that gives me the idea that there's a heart doing something in the environment. Everything from the heart, either if I do it or if I see it being done, makes me feel life doesn't suck. And then, and that is a big understatement in so many ways. And then the other thing that really has made me feel alive a lot over the last 13 years since I started has been following this path of inquiry into this spiritual guidance I got working with these Mayan shamans searching for the meaning of 2012 and applying my scientific skills to unraveling it. And it's really opened these doors into the esoteric and sacred geometry, the whole, what I call the geosolar galactic synchronicity, which is super out of this world, and I'm sure it's what the Mayan shaman from ancient days predicted for 2012, but that's a long story. I'm not trying to open right now. And the way that it came in was I had made a discovery that there's something to this shaman business and this higher consciousness business. Tested it as a scientist, and then found it passed my test, and that really made me feel alive more than I ever had in 2008, and got me to go back and dive deeper with these people, looking into wisdom, traditions, and ancient wisdom, and modern expression of it. So that's really done it for me.
Thank you, Orion. I'm going to synopsize that too. Generally, I notice like you can only hold the attention, for a little bit, and there's a little disruption. And so Orion's going into I'm teaching this natural law, right? Or the laws of the universe. And I think what you're diving into is that the world of the shaman is a very subtle world. And Jesus actually said it in one of the Gospels, there are many mansions in my Father's house. And to me, that's what shamanism is exploring the mansions of the Father's house. Right?
Sure. And just to bring it full circle with what you're doing here tonight, this ancient code and this thing I call the Gemini Code that relates to the other stuff I talked about, it's all about these opposites. And the opposites and the light and the dark and the duality, and then the math that goes along with it is like this fractal algebra that's all about palindrome symmetry of the equations, and then it relates so powerfully to a lot of the stuff that the shaman was teaching about. And somehow in the ancient world, you can say it was common knowledge.
So you started out with, just so people, in case they didn't hear him, is seeing people act from the heart. Like, so is that what I think I heard you said?
Yeah.
So how do you know that someone's acting from their heart? By observing them, though.
Feel it.
So if you're watching this, that's an important distinction. Is most of us are thinking about feeling these days. We're what we call helicoptering, and we're not actually feeling. And that's a masculine trait. I was talking to Gene and Bernie about this. Got this insight. Men feel through thinking, and women think through feeling.
I love it.
Right? Masculine, feminine archetype, right? And so a lot of us in the world are so traumatized that my experience of being traumatized is my soul slowly vacates my body. And we're sort of disassociated in psychology. And then we embody when we feel safe. That's why massage is so helpful, because we start to feel safe and softer, and then we come back in, or whatever it is that we are, because it's a hard time defining that, right? And we
Craig, could you repeat men are what and women are what, please?
I'll say masculine, feminine, but if I don't want any PC people getting mad at me.
Yeah.
So men, as a masculine archetype, generally a masculine man, he feels through thinking.
Thanks.
And women think through feeling. That's that man from Mars, woman from Venus kind of thing. Because living with Gene and Bernie now, I'm in this Kwanzaa hut now since February 1st, it's like, I don't have any man cave to go to.
Oh no.
You know, there's nowhere to hide.
Do you get grouchy?
Well, you know, if I wake up aroused in the middle of the night, I feel like one night I woke up aroused in the middle of the night, and Bernie was in her bed across the room moaning and groaning. I was like, did my aroused thing cause that? Just, what the F is going on? You know? So it really is when you start to live oneness, things, I mean, I think I'm living a permanent acid trip for a couple of years now. Like,
Oh, you are.
start living oneness is like,
For sure.
this is an acid trip.
Okay, that was a good one too.
I think you wanted the succinct thing about thinking and feeling.
James got it.
We got it.
And then we got, oh, so Tori didn't get to go. What brings you alive? Makes you feel.
I am kinesthetic. So if I sat down to meditate, which of course we all did there, it's still mental for me. So I will start my day literally running down the driveway to walk among the redwoods in my bare feet, my animals. And I ground and I do a little invocation, the one we've said before. And then that latter part of the day, I go and overlook the Capitola water thing up above. And I do this one exercise. And bring it back, you know, the old yoga thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's first.
Oh, I wish my chest
I
was
can't
like
do that
that.
part.
No,
So we every day
like
for a while,
elastic, the arms just want to go like this.
I go snap.
And then you feel the chi. And I tell you, that takes me to my center like nothing else in my whole life. It avoids the meditation time. So I'm there, and I not care who is watching. The traffic is going by, people walking their dogs, and I'm just following the chi. Not being restricted by any mental qigong moves, but just doing what my body wants. And I mean, it's been the greatest discovery, and it just takes me to that place, and then I can do a prayer, you know, which is the healing for every cell on the planet, and peace now, you know, I love that one. Oh, and then, freeform dancing, I just love it. I mean, I'll die doing that one, you know what I mean? I used to dance in San Francisco with Van Halpern. I don't know, but way back we had Dancers Workshop, and we'd get together in about a group of 4, and we'd dance in the city, San Francisco. And then we'd invite everybody, you know, to tourist town, to come down to the Embarcadero, where we would all do dancing. So we now have Dance Church happening again at the Tannery. It starts at 9:11 a.m.
Oh, good.
On 9/11 Sundays.
Sunday.
Yeah, so I know.
The
And
10.
this week actually, 9/11, 9 a.m. Did you say what time?
No, 9/11 in the morning.
Yeah, that's to help you remember it.
Yeah.
We're not too far off.
I
Not
got
too
it.
far off topic.
What?
Not too far off topic.
Okay, anyway, so the dancing. And to invite people just to move their bodies the way they want to move them and use, you know, what needs to be moved. You know, people are so shy about dancing, and it's like, come on, you know, they're doing this sort of thing. So anyway, that's been a thrill for me. So those 2 things take me where I want to go. Happy dying, dancing, or doing my chi. Thank you.
So I think probably they heard you pretty well. There wasn't a lot of distractions, but the 2 main things were grounding on the earth, you know, on the redwoods, and moving instead of, so that you have a moving meditation instead of a sitting meditation, basically.
Good.
And then dancing, which is another form of movement.
And that one exercise with the chi.
And one exercise with the chi that she demonstrated so nicely. And to validate you, I would add on that Adyashanti personally has stated at least 100 times, I've heard him over 20 years say, I was a failure at meditation. Therefore, I had to learn how to be a failure at meditation. And in his way was to make even thinking okay. And that was how I meditate, is if my mind's thinking, I give my mind something to chew on, like count your breaths, or, you know, there's different techniques you can have the mind chew on something, and then when the other side of meditation is completely passive, where you let everything be as it is, and that's where my curiosity lies, is where, because if it's a lot of noise, then that means there's trauma underneath the noise usually.
But what was so shocking to me was after doing that one exercise, and like I say, I go into a non-thinking place.
Right. See, that's
Holy
exactly
mackerel.
right. Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, what a
Right.
gift.
Because some people, that's their avenue. They have to move, and some people can sit. And ideally, you know, we like to have a variety, right, of tools. And in the end, there's a saying that I'll add in. It's not as positive as some people might think, but in the end, it's good. Is that Ajashanti has this word. There's a point where for each of us where our spiritual chiropractic adjustments no longer work, and we have to face reality as its naked self. And that's called the dark night of the soul. And my perception of that years ago when I was doing a lot of silent sitting at Mount Madonna with Adya was there's this void that would present like, who am I? And then it's just emptiness. What am I really? Emptiness. This isn't really encouraging. And then pass through this portal, and then Master Eckhart back like a millennia ago called it the pregnant void presents itself.
That's why I'm a pregnant boy.
The pregnant void presents itself, and that's where you know, some of us get it easier than others, but each of us has a point where we have to embody our enlightenment. And I don't know how many times in my life I made a proclamation, and then the next few days, weeks, or months I'm asleep at the wheel, the test comes. Are you going to embody that realization, everybody? Like thousands of failures, you know. Oh, I didn't get it again. And it's not really a failure because that's the theater, see? And that's the point, is to just get back to, that's a masculine trait, to have a plan and then to fail. Well, the feminine way is just spontaneity, right? Just be in the moment. All right, blabbing over. Melissa next.
Well, I say the moments I live for are the moments when I'm fully surrendered and I watch the genius of nature or source or whatever we want to call it move through me. And whether that's through music or dance, let's call it magic. I'd say symbology really deeply inspires me, that we're all these magical archetypes and these characters playing these roles in this play. And that's when I started to get really stoked on life, is to see these patterns, whether in fairy tales or astrology or any sort of lore, and this humility comes about, wow, like there's so much more to the story we're playing out. So I really live for that. I really live for actually understanding my ego, if you will, understanding this short pixie body that I'm embodying, and what its job is, you know, and what characters it's playing, and what parts of the story I am to fulfill in this life, you know. Like many of you know, I've been diagnosed with cancer, you know, and one of Orion's magics is with his whole map thing, and which I still don't fully understand, but there's a passing through cancer, and so it inspires a story in me of a potential belief to at least to have the humility that there's so much more happening than my little mind can understand. Yet there's that potential and opportunity to explore it, and that's really what makes me come alive. Is that exploration and those synchronicities, and you know. To give you a sample, one of my other dark nights of the soul a few years ago, my father gave the name Melissa, which means honeybee. I always knew I had another name, and the gods gave me the name Ferra, F-E-R-R-A, which means iron-like. And
That's right.
so the symbology came of being kind of the center of the earth, and I'm very thick too, so this sort of short, thick thing being center of the earth in Orion's map. Actually, my birthday is right between the Iron Age and the Golden Age, and so here I am, this iron being, and then like Melissa, the honeybee is also the gold. So, you know, there's just this fascinating stuff that starts unraveling when we start really questioning who we are, what colors our eyes are and our hair are, and the shape we are. There's all these magical things about, you know, what our superpowers are, you know, and you know, when I'm really asked that question, when I can pull myself out of the root of just the monotony and that the dark forces have created for us to think that we're just these monkey muggles, but truly we are demigods, you know, and we have these superpowers, and if we just study ourselves, you know, those will start to unfold. And, you know, I believe all of us, what, you know, there's magic in every single place, whether you're looking at your palms or your birthday or, you know, your irises or your tongue, right, Craig? There's secrets and symbols everywhere about where we are and what we're doing and what our purpose is here, because I think that's foundationally what drives us, this purpose for you Matrix lovers. And so,
Can I pause you at the tongue for a second?
yeah.
So we're taking a photograph of her tongue every week, so isn't it encouraging to see like,
Oh, very much,
you know,
yeah.
this slimy, pale, purplish tongue to, I mean, it's pretty bright red now. And the slime's almost gone, so.
Everybody.
Let me see your secret.
That's so cute.
So that makes me feel alive and flying. Flying makes me feel alive. Yeah, that's enough gabbling for me. That's
Well,
fine.
I just wanna clap, man, I think you're.
Can I spice her magic a little bit with just a dabble? When she said that she is appropriately named after a gold and an iron symbol, that is astonishingly accurate. And it's one of those things where I have a similar connection to it in the sense that I had a near-death experience 6 months from her birthday on the opposite line, so it's very appropriate for this dialogue.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I didn't even just realize this until just this year, you know, in the very near recent past. No, it was 2007 that experience. In 2008, that experience was given to me by the shaman in this ancient ceremony as my healing spirit. That's what opened my eyes to discover these things. And what I realized through mapping and taking all this ancient wisdom that didn't really make any sense, and I didn't have any belief in it because no way could these guys have known all these things so long ago. But as a scientist, I was like, look, let me figure out, try to put together what they did know and what are the error bars. And I realized that there's these two stars that basically divide the sky, and these yogis are like, in the ancient world, it was common knowledge that human evolution collectively flows with the orbit of a binary star that turns the whole solar system around every 24,000 years. And it goes along an elliptical orbit in alignment with these two stars. And then when you
Can't make that up.
Can't
when
make
you
that
look at
up.
how the ancient zodiac
Lie
is
about it.
anchored to
Can't
this
make it up.
in a fixed way, it takes a whole new shape. And so the modern zodiac, the tropical, has migrated a certain distance from that. And what that means is that those stars, basically, the autumn equinox goes in the circle, and when it's pointed to those stars, you're either in the lowest point or the highest point of human consciousness in this spiraling pattern. So it's not going to repeat itself entirely, but it's a similar pattern every 24,000. And we're coming up out of the low point, which would have been around 499, 500 AD, and they're burning all the libraries. And we're in the beginning of the Bronze Age, the time where we're beginning to reawaken that there's something beyond physical. And we've got a long way to go back up. So there is this ascension path that actually goes well with archaeology. And my work with the Mayans was basically gave me enough info to map it and then prove to myself that they were spot on. Like as a scientist, I can measure this. I couldn't get my bosses to sign on and make it mainstream and publish it yet, but you know, one of these days I think that's going to happen. And it's a long, slow process. So you know, every step towards it, everything from the heart does kind of draw us back up to that high point. And it is amazing. Melissa's born right to that dividing line. I think that's a very powerful goddess symbol. And then the way that line connects to the galactic center, the solstice equinox line, and those stars, and makes this other pattern that I discovered. Well, I bow down.
Just doing my job like that.
Thank you, Orion.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Still
you.
in your contract.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We'll come in, we've got at least a few more shows. Annie, do you have something you want to say?
gosh, you know,
You mean you're not gonna sum it up?
I'm not going to summon that was too much.
Feel like your voice carried too. Let's hope you do.
And then I don't know all of you, but what I've been through in the past year has been the hardest year of my entire life, and I shouldn't have died several times. But Craig and Monica rescued me from Dominican where they tried to kill me after I burned in my house. It was on fire for 12 hours. I should have been dead in 5 minutes. I was there for 12 hours. So when the firemen busted down my door and I had 3 feet of water in my house and I was just in a robe and I was all black, and my kitties were there too, swimming, scared. And they took me to the hospital. They 50-50 me. They told me I was fucking crazy. And they tortured me in the ER. And I was an EMT, so I know the hospital. I worked with the doctors. I knew the hospital. They let me be like a nurse because I had that knowledge in my. Thank God, because I knew how to get out when these guys got me out. But they said I had COVID. They put 16-inch skewer sticks up my nose and said I had COVID. They punctured my brain blood barrier thing. Couldn't see, taste, hear, smell for a little while. I was like, fuck. Because she went, wham, and I go, whoa. And then they threw me in this cold room that had glass on the steel table. I was wet. They wouldn't let me get dry clothes on. I had this big robe on that was furry. And then they put me to the COVID floor where 7 days I starved to 87 pounds. And then...
Annie, can I pause you? Do you really want to go down this?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Thank you.
Anyway,
So what brings you alive is
what brings me
the
alive?
query.
Sorry. Oh, dancing, music, nature. I love to garden, I cook, I sing, I dance, and I'm a designer. And just helping people. If I can give somebody that doesn't have anything something, whether it's just a smile, or money, or food, or whatever, it's great. And I'm helping rescue the kids that are sex slaves too, because I was treated really bad in my life, as it turns out. But all that other stuff brings me alive, and just being around people like you, it's good.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So synopsis was basically a semi-victim of the system, which we're, calling the medical system. So, and overcoming. It was my personal natural law practice, and Monica got to practice a little bit too about just giving veiled threats.
And it worked.
And it worked. Yeah, that's what it did.
Don't take no for an answer.
Don't take no for an answer.
Amazing.
We weren't taking no for an answer,
It worked.
and it worked. Yeah.
Fascinating.
That's how you create reality. We're not trying. We're doing.
We are doing
Yeah, we're not trying. There's no maybe.
No.
That's what I know.
Either do or don't.
I know from a client when I hear try or maybe, it's a no. I tell them that sometimes, like, okay, when I get a yes and you can close the sale, then you can talk. I'll try.
No.
Thumbs down.
Bye.
Deanne, we've got some good stuff, I'm sure, from you.
Yeah, but how do I top any of that? And of course,
We just complimented.
exactly. It's not
Yeah,
a
give us
competition.
some
It's like
Like competitive.
hearing some of these amazing stories and what people have been through. I bow and I'm honored to be here among all of these amazing people, really. And Craig, you asked the question of what brings light, or what brings light to me, or lightens me up. But I'm also really curious about the darkness, because it can be confusing and sticky and negative. But really, the darkness is where the mystery lies. This is the feminine energy. This is the positive, beautiful stuff. And it's like, so sitting in silence and in darkness, that's where curiosity can come alive. And this is kind of more the path that I've been on lately. I've been on a spiritual path forever, and it can become addictive. And we talked about that a little bit, a couple weeks back on the natural law class.
Right.
But really, to know oneself it can be very challenging. And some of the questions that Craig asks, it's like, I know I can give this up. I know I can give up this addiction, but I don't want to. So who's the one who doesn't want to? Just diving into these really deep questions, and this is the mystery, this is the darkness. And that's the whole paradox and the wholeness of life, is that diving into that darkness brings me to light, because it's all one. Everything's one. And you were talking about the sacred geometry, and I witnessed that the other night doing my ayahuasca ceremony. It's like, it's amazing, so much potential of what we can be and what we can do and what we can see. And that's what brings me to light. And honestly, for when I'm working with clients, I'm not doing nearly so much clinical nutrition anymore because I'm all about helping people remove their limiting beliefs, these blocks that we don't even know we have. The potential we all have is just phenomenal if we can get out of our own way. And that means diving into the darkness a little bit, but not in a negative way, not in a depressing or confusing or stuff way, but really embracing it. Yeah, and that just brings me to life for sure.
Wow.
Well, that's an easy synopsis too, because you can take one way and get to the other. There's a theorem in yin yang, the early macrobiotic Chinese medical studies was everything in its extreme becomes its opposite.
Absolutely, it's the paradox always emerges.
Yeah, everything in extreme becomes its opposite.
Yeah.
Extreme
And that's the
contraction becomes an expansion.
And that's the
Extreme
beauty of the
expansion
yin yang
becomes a
symbol,
contraction.
right? Because you have the white with the little black dot in the flag.
Right.
That,
Right.
So that, it's wholeness, it's not a dual symbol, it's a plural symbol, it encompasses everything. It's beautiful.
And that's the Heart Sutra. Does anybody know the Heart Sutra? Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And ad-lib, you would do that for 35 minutes on end, just chanting that away. But I digress, so thank you, Deanne.
Beautiful.
Jaunty, who's you?
Well, I like brevity. In myself. Because I don't like to attract a lot of attention to myself. So I like movement and I like nature. So I really like hiking, mountain biking, doing yoga in nature, things like that. And I like, dancing really turns me on. And also community and food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Thank you for hosting.
Yes,
Thank you.
Jaunty is sitting next to the light, by the way.
In the light.
Try not to be noticed next to the light.
Alright, gotta be noticed.
You complete?
I'm complete, thank you.
Okay, we'll move forward to Monica and then James. Monica, I bet we've got a good answer from you.
I'm gonna go over here because it feels weird to not talk to being able to see people's faces.
Oh, we gotta shift the camera then.
Yeah.
By the way, that chair is very solid. It's not a
Yeah,
Chinese
it's a little
chair.
baby, it's a baby
It's
chair.
a
It's a baby
fisherman's
chair, I'll
chair.
try it.
You got a baby one.
Oh my goodness.
Can I have that chair? That's perfect.
That's cute.
Yeah, we got her on camera. Good.
I'll be brave and sing and answer now. I love to play and surprise myself and anyone else I can. I love to find out what the synchronicities want to be in every conversation. I play better in groups and on teams. I love how we pray together more openly in this beautiful time. And I can keep praying and playing and being all the better with so many beings like all of you. That's what lights me up.
Yay.
Her singing is magic.
It's amazing how bizarre I was. There's so many groups of people that I wanted to do things like that. And you guys love me. Honestly, it's so fun. Phew. I really can cry with the joy. Yeah. Just have to say that. It's
To really be yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
I so deeply appreciate we have made a space for all of us to become ourselves. And be healed by being ourselves.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
1000%.
Yeah.
And that helps lights us all up.
Yes. We're each other's light switches all the time.
Yes.
And to offer our uniqueness, to make the whole cake, the whole
Yeah.
pie, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Uniqueness.
And the coherence of our hearts right now in this room is just off the charts.
Yeah.
Off the charts.
Yeah.
Oh, and thanks for saying it, because every time somebody reminds me, I feel my heart swell.
Yeah.
That's when we really focus that way.
Mhm.
Wow.
How we heal the world.
Yeah.
There's a meridian in Chinese medicine called the heart protector, the pericardium. And in the pulse work, there was one of the teachers, he referred to it as, one of the side names of the pericardium was the circulation sex meridian. And I was always intrigued by that, how for hearts overly protected. I've had a number of clients where, and this one lady, she was in her late 30s and she had already signs of calcification around the chest. And she, quote, had never had a climax. And I could see why. Because her pericardium pulse was like a bowstring, so tight. And she had been, typical story, she'd been date raped her first few times. She had been on ecstasy, Molly. And so, because of her work with me, she was able to be herself once again. And through some work, she was able to finally have a climax. And have a great relationship where she wasn't in her head when she was physically with someone. Because she went right up into her head. And so she was able to be herself by, one of my more recent discoveries that I've been able to verbalize is that a lot of women, men are programmed pretty well to be men children or feminized. And that's by strategy, I believe, because they don't want the Bravehearts running around. That women get to these men children and then they say no, and then the men leave. And so the women get this fear of saying no. So I've had numbers of women recently just saying, oh, I just go along with it. I just go along with it. Because one woman, while she was being date raped, would say to herself, don't disappoint him.
What? Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. And so we get afraid to be ourselves. Because then we'll be struck down, or I call that the crucifixion complex. I have a lot of years going through the crucifixion complex, because if I be myself, I'm going to get ostracized, murdered, whatever, tortured. And each of us goes through a period of that where, if I'm myself, right? So thank you for sharing. I think that there's a Buddhist saying, I and all beings awaken simultaneously. It's a great pointer. I and all beings awaken simultaneously. So when you awaken, each of us awakens a little more. Thank you, Monica.
Yeah, thank you.
Where are we? James, back to...
I don't even go twice.
We're there.
Yeah, we switched places, I know.
Oh, that's right, you already went.
Although I could.
James Doppelganger.
I'm just kidding.
James Doppelganger. I forgot you already went. Carol.
Yeah, so movement lights me up in nature mostly, but also at home. I like to move my body. I also enjoy working with clients, helping them get past their limitations and move forward. And part of that's also when I have a community event as well. It's a bars trade, and so when I have that event, it's wonderful because everybody leaves lighter, which is awesome. And then, raising my sons is wonderful. I'm really enjoying that, even though it's challenging, but it's a lot of fun, and it's creating so much for the future, so that's wonderful to think about. And then I just wanted to follow on what Deanne said about the yin-yang and your comments earlier about the May 1st, and which is the Day of Light, and then the Day of the Dead on November 1st. But really, birth and death is just two sides of a coin. Both are transformational. And we have this idea that death is a bad thing or darkness is a bad thing. But like you were saying earlier, it's really not. It's our perception of it. So, and with yin and yang as well, there is a little bit of light in the dark and there's dark in the light. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that so that we wouldn't be in a judgment of one or the other, a positive or negative judgment. So I just wanted to add that. And I'm done.
Okay, quick synopsis. That was, so I hear this from a lot of mothers, raising your 3 boys, which is, kudos to you.
Teens.
Yeah, my mother raised me and my brother, so believe me, I understand the travails of being a single mother with boys. And then movement, and then I also you had a statement that brought me back to life about in any negative situation, if someone has something wrong with them. I love we were talking today about what's right about this.
Yeah.
And so it's such a great query when something's going wrong for us. Like I'm looking at the sky lately and going, well, what's right about this?
Yeah.
Because it just helps.
Yeah.
I feel a little lighter.
Yeah.
Like, so in your case, Melissa, what's right about this, right? It's a much better reframe than what's wrong with me. Right? What's right about this situation? Because it's divine. Why? Because it's happening.
Yeah.
If it's happening, it's divine. And our resistance to that is our suffering.
Right.
Right now is divine. You cannot resist now because it's happening.
Yeah.
And but that's part of the game is to forget and remember, and to forget and remember. And we all have different frequencies we forget and remember, right? To me, that's what partnership is, hey, my partner's down in the darkness, I'm going to pull her up. I ain't diving down there, but I'll pull her up. But that's been my tendency, is to shape shift. Oh, I'll dive down there in the darkness with him. And then it's like, well, that didn't help anything, right? You pull them up, and so I'm going to plug that too, because I really feel like Carol's work is really important. And June 18th, 17th?
Yeah, June 18th.
That's the class.
That's a class, yeah.
And what does it teach?
Well, it's access consciousness, and it's a bars class, but there are a lot of tools. So you would learn the bars that day, and you get a manual. But in the manual, there's other tools besides the hands-on process.
Is that a one-day?
Yeah, it's a one-day class.
Bars mean what kind of bars?
I did it. It was amazing.
So yeah, you touch different points on the head, and the theory is that there's a bar going through your head that represents different points, different aspects of your life.
That's fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like to do that. That's
June-
right before my birthday.
I had a session
When's
with
your birthday?
Florence.
June 22nd.
A session with Florence. And my query, she asked me what my query was, and I wanted to feel lighter about the chemtrails. So 2 weeks after our session, at a moment I was riding my e-bike around feeling very bad about the chemtrails. And then I said to myself, well, how does that thought feel? And it's like, well, I don't feel safe. And then I've been practicing saying I love you to myself, like looking in the mirror and saying I love you. And then the first time in this one, it came in by itself, like the sky said I love you to me. And I broke open into tears.
So what was right about that moment?
Because I became alive again, right?
I mean, but you focused on what was right.
Yeah, it was right about that moment. But it was because of the session with Florence that I think that it opened me up to a greater bubble than the tiny little bubble I was stuck in.
And that opening up is
It's much
essentially
more
darkness.
expansive.
The opening up into that mystery, into the wider, the possibilities.
Yeah.
And that's feminine energy.
Thinking, I thought my way into feeling.
Congratulations.
There's hope.
There's hope for us, man.
You cried.
And I cried. See, I was feeling.
See?
Definitely
That's
feeling.
good.
I'd like to acknowledge the synchronicity to your comment, in that the sky told you it loved you. And I don't know when that happened, but it connects to the date of your event, because June 18th is a special day in this little code that I discovered, including what the Mayans were talking about, because you know that they talk about the solstice line. So the 18th is a few days before the solstice. And the connection is actually that the 18th of December, 18th of June is respectively our nearest and our farthest point in orbit relative to the galactic center.
Wow.
And opposite the galactic center, coincidentally, is my namesake's the Orion belt. The 3 belt stars
Right.
Yeah.
are 180 degrees from the galactic center, and then plus 1, 2, 3 degrees.
At all times. At all times.
Yeah.
Wow.
But right now in history, the solstice is 1, 2, 3 degrees in the other direction across that.
We'll always love you.
That was perfect. That was perfect. That was absolutely perfect.
Unbelievable.
So,
There's your synopsis right there.
Yeah.
so the ancients put like the symbol of the goddess in the position of the galactic center.
Okay,
Yeah, I know.
let's try.
It's Whitney Collins.
If anybody watching the video isn't going to hear a thing.
It'll be heard every time. But
Okay, so when there's multiple voices, the camera, the mic gets overwhelmed.
That's the kind.
I'll edit this piece up.
Right.
Is it still going? It's still
Wow,
going.
yeah, stir the pot. This is great. Pot got stirred up.
The boyfriend will always love her.
Okay, we're still on camera, you guys. We're gonna we got a few more people. You guys, still on camera. And anybody watching is like completely confused right now.
As they should
So,
be.
yeah, they're very
Let's
confused.
cut it out, cut it
What are
out.
they doing? Can't hear a word. So synopsis was Orion brought in just this thing about June 18th being where we're at. We're closest to the galactic center, and December 18th we're furthest from the galactic center. And I wish Jean was here, because Jean could have contributed some stuff. She sent me some galactic activation thing
Where is
yesterday.
she?
And,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
so
the practical application, just to bring it down to earth,
okay.
is the synchronicity that I was referring to earlier is related to at our nearest and farthest points from the galactic center, the day length starts changing. And so in the northern hemisphere, while we're going into longer days, we're moving towards the galactic center. So it's like the great light of the galactic center.
It's the waxing galactic center time.
Yeah, and the days are getting longer in the north, and it's opposite in the south, and so there's like a, you know, that whole opposites is also takes many dimensions.
Okay, so one more thing I'll throw in with that is there are 2 times of year where there's floating energy. And in the winter, it's from December 20th to the 25th, through my macrobiotic Chinese medical studies, they call that floating on water energy. And then June 20th to the 25th, they call floating on fire energy.
That's me.
It's like expanding, and then it sort of just hovers there, right? Because the light's not expanding anymore, right? The light suddenly stops expanding, and then with the contraction, right? But right now we're in the highest expansion, right? May 1st, like it's just there's more light, right? Every day, it's like it's not dark out. Pretty soon, pretty soon it's going to be like 9 o'clock. It'll still be light out.
It's June 22nd.
My birthday's along the daylight.
Which is this is Beltane is May 1st, and then St. John's Day. So why are they calling these dates what they are? Like, what is special about St. John, right? So that's when St. John's wort. That's when you harvest St. John's wort, which is a yellow flower, which turns red when you extract it, the color of blood. But it's golden. The flowers are golden, which is this whole thing with gold in the heart, right?
Yeah.
And our blood really isn't red. It's actually blue until it hits the air.
Oxygen gets in there, it goes red.
I mean, if you look at your veins right now, you'll see that they're blue.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
In the arteries, it's red though.
That's because there's oxygen.
Yeah.
No, I think in the really.
In the veins, it's
Yeah.
blue, and in the arteries, it's red.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Veins
yes,
is
go
blue,
back.
arteries
Yeah.
is red. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because the arteries
But
is
if you
deeper.
puncture a vein, it's still going to come out red because as soon as
Because the
it's
oxygen
here,
hits
it
it.
oxygen. Yeah.
Because the veins are on top and the arteries are closer to the bone, right? That's how the body's anatomy is set up like that. I
I
think.
think you just don't see them because they're not blue. But I
Okay,
don't know.
serious question. I've given 10 gallons of blood, that's 80 times. That stuff that comes out of my veins is pretty red. Why is that?
It oxidizes when it hits the air.
Air.
Yeah.
It's in a tube. There's not hitting it.
It's still hitting.
There's
something
air in the
like-
tube
There's still
first.
air in the tube.
Fine, I accept that answer. But I don't agree with it.
So if we were out in space and something
Yes,
took
it
our
would be
blood,
blue.
It'd be blue.
then it
It
would be blue.
it would be
That's what would be fun to see.
I don't want to do that.
So-
I'm known to be out to space. Why is
I'm gonna bring this.
Ask him not to that.
I can,
Bring this back.
Happened out there, but astronauts.
I wish there was something in the public discussion on the video. So I'm gonna bring this back to what awe is. So here's awe.
They must have.
Plant blood and human blood is almost
Same.
identical.
Except for?
So for this,
Magnesium at the center of chlorophyll and iron at the center of hemoglobin.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this work. I wanted to know why they came up with COVID, and I have my answers now. I haven't formulated it into a blog yet, but Steiner refers to iron as the element of free will. And what is a jab messing with? They don't want us to have free will.
It's the fun facts.
They want us to be automatons. Right? So just consider that, like, each element, some of the old nutrition people would refer to the elements as having personalities. Like phosphorus was the right bear element. You know, they all had different magnesium. Potassium was particularly, it was called the radioactive element in Bernard Jensen's Chemistry of Man book. Why would they call potassium the radioactive element? They're talking about process. Again, back to, we've been trained to study death, dead chemistry, right? Cadavers. And the medical profession never studied life as the AMA had it, but that was by design.
Was that before like potassium argon dating?
Passing what?
Argon dating?
Oh man, the argon. Let's not leave that in.
There's a radioactive isotope of potassium that turns to argon.
You know, there's so many little theories that I could go into, but we're trying to get the audience somewhat from freaking out. I'm already an audacious individual, you know, so I'll just leave that part out. Because then we have Tom Cowan talking about deuterium depleted water.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It's like, okay, I'm overwhelmed.
I'm
overwhelmed now.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck deuterium is, you know. And the water's depleted. Ah!
It's too heavy to deal with.
It is cool because it allows us to date things that are like 1 billion years old.
So what I would tell the audience is that I have a hydrogen machine that I studied the testimonials. I read 100 testimonials of this AquaCure HHO electrically expanded water machine. Jonty has a version of it. And I read, well, this guy had cancer and it got cured, and this guy had chronic pain and it got cured, and this guy was chronically dehydrated and sinuses were messed up and it got cured. And I'm like, it's such a broad. So my career over 35 years has been studying who is getting results and then working backwards as to why. Royal Lee worked that way. In Santa Process, it was like he would formulate something and they would say, how did you come up with the formula? And he would say, divine providence. No one says divine providence much anymore.
They don't say it enough.
Channeled. He basically was channeled, and this, how the hell did I come up with this? Was the backward step. Muscle testing. Deanna and I really, I hung out with some serious quackery, some serious quack muscle testers abusing that power.
Yeah.
Right. But a good muscle tester to me is nothing more than a channel. Unless you do the Arthur Coca pulse testing system, which is objectified. I have a normal resting pulse of 60. I add banana to my mouth, my pulse goes to 70. My body's telling me something, it's a repeatable result. Every time I put a banana in my freaking mouth for a minute, my pulse goes up. That was Arthur Coca's allergy testing system, which never made it mainstream. Why? Because it costs $0, is why. James, you've collected this stuff. What's free, easy, and natural, right? We don't need medicine.
We could talk for a while.
Breathing.
Breathing, Cindy, thank you.
Cold therapy.
Yeah, I love that.
We don't need medicine. That's right, AMA. We don't need you. You're on notice.
No, it's the cause of all.
All right, we gotta go over to Jim here. What lights you up, Jim?
Yeah. Well, I'll just tell you how I start my day, and then it goes from there. But what I like to do, I'll have breakfast, and then I'll go out in my yard, and a while later I'll do yoga, and then I'll meditate on God. And then they call it be still and know. So you're not really thinking about things, but you're in the presence of God. And then I'll ask for His guidance, and then that will set the stage for the day. And then when I go through my life or through my day, I feel like I'm guided in different circumstances that happen. I feel like I'm guided through it to that. It's basically how I start my day and how I live.
Right on.
So, I regularly refer to Jim as Saint Jim. I know why now. I didn't realize you started your day like that. And I perceive Jim as the person I used to be 30 years ago, which is more quiet and observant. And now I'm the opposite of that in a public setting. But I appreciate your energy, Jim, because it's where the person I used to be was more quiet, observant, and, to be blunt, more humble.
Oh, really? Really?
I can never say that.
How the pendulum does swing.
Oh, yes, it does.
Do you have proof of this?
It's all around them.
You're recording somewhere?
Oh, I love love outing myself. It's the most fun thing ever. Kent, would you like to? Thank you, Jim. Kent, would you like to say anything? What lights you up?
The things that make me feel alive are particular places in nature. I just think of particular instances that I've felt a very extreme presence of life in nature, and also in traditional Japanese architecture. And I find that really missing in this country, where everything is made out of asbestos and drywall and
Tyvek.
Tyvek, sweat, chemicals and sweat.
yeah. But I just think in particular old houses in Japan.
Yeah.
And I'd be asleep there at night, and I could feel the house.
You feel the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the energy of the house, yeah.
The house is just alive,
It is.
and it's loving us and nurturing us, and that's so missing in this country.
Have you ever been up to Melissa McComb's place?
What?
Melissa McComb. She actually has a structure on her property that's very much like what you're talking about. Melinda?
Yeah, Melinda. That's Melinda.
I wanna ask Kent how old he is.
How young he is.
How young are
Am
you?
I today?
How old are you today? How young are you?
86.
So, shall we honor this man? He's our elder. This is our elder here tonight. Thank you, Kent. Thank you for coming, Kent. I feel honored. Kent's been to India, right? You've been to India?
Yeah, the energy you feel in India is something really special. But
Come alive, right?
There's a terrible contrast there between the energy and the poison in the people.
Right. Because the modern world, right? You have the modern world density, what they used to call, what Yogananda's teacher called the materialists are taking over. So they sent Yogananda over and all these masters over 100 years ago because the West was going to destroy the world. So they said, right? And that's why they were very smart 100 years ago to send over the yogis and when did the Aikido guy come over? It was like 1920s when the Aikido guy came over. Yeah, the Aikido guy came over in 1920s, and so Steiner in his writings 100 years ago talks about the materialist, and he was a Westerner. So we're at the apex of materialism, which is about to explode and go back the other way, right? Biden just asked for $33 billion for Ukraine. If that's at the apex of materialism, I don't know what is. To defend his neo-Nazi people, right? I just like it's like theater every day. I'm like, this guy just asked, and I got that on a talk, on a meme, on a funny YouTube channel called John Talks, and he just has these funny like sounds like roar, and it shows the 33 billion. 33 billion. And you just go, this is ridiculous. Thank you, Kent. You feel complete? You feel complete? Okay. Do you want the camera pointed at you? You don't care, okay.
It's already been
What lights you up? What lights you up?
I was on camera while you were speaking so fondly of Biden, so I'm fucked.
So what lights you up, Cindy?
Wait, Craig.
What
There's significantly different history than what you just said the last couple minutes, and I'll leave it at that. We could talk for an hour on the different things of what you just said.
Oh, sure.
Talk about it another time.
It's some fun.
Now
Totally
I'm on
different than
camera
what you
with
said.
him, so.
Here you go.
Yeah, right. What lights me up is making people laugh.
Accomplished.
Also eating foods that are alive, and right now as my stomach hurts from eating that chocolate cake, I'm reminded of how it was not alive. And ways to use their breath to sustain their health and vitality. And yeah, I guess that's it.
I really appreciate the breath part because today I got a cramp. I wasn't breathing properly in my yoga practice. I got a foot cramp, and then just hold your freaking breath out, you know, and then it went away.
Like magic.
Yeah, it's like, wow, this control.
Magic of carbon dioxide?
Yeah, the CO2, the magic of CO2. Right.
And imagine it going there all the faster.
To quickly add to that, how do plants make sugar and carbohydrates out of sunlight, air, and CO2? That's what they do. They're making carbohydrates out of carbon dioxide, water, and air, and minerals. Because all a pure carbohydrate is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So you add water to CO2, and you can make a carbohydrate out of that. That's incredible. It's part of like this awe. If you're not in awe at that, like right. Plant blood and human blood is almost identical. If I'm not in awe at that, I'm numb. I'm just numb, you know. And I'm on 2 hard ciders right now, you know, so I'm pretty numb.
Well, not only that, but the plants are made out of the air. You know,
right.
People think that plants grow up out of the dirt, but they're not. They're just using the dirt as stability to hold them up. The air, they're solidifying the carbon in the air.
Oh, beautifully put. And lightning isn't like we think it is either. I think lightning starts from, what does it look like lightning is? From the sky to the ground? I think it actually goes from the ground to the sky.
Or some people say it starts and meets.
Oh, really?
I've heard that. I don't think we really know, but I've heard that one. I like that one the best.
Wow.
I'm not scary whenever it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to be on the camera, Karsten? Okay. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
Okay, we got last but not least, good friend Karsten. What lights you up?
One thing that lights me up is co-creating and experiencing with the universe possibilities and miracles. Yeah.
Nice.
One specific example?
Oh, I can give you
Just one.
1,000 examples.
Just one specific one that's personal to you.
I mean, my house.
Right. Is your house, LEED certified or whatever?
No, I never got it certified.
But it could be.
I suppose.
So is it sort of a straw bale variation? Is that?
No, it's not me. That was the original plan, but
okay.
The manifestation of that home and the way it came about was a total miracle.
Because you were a green architect.
Yeah, I was doing green building consulting at the time, and a real estate broker friend of mine said, "Hey, we got these 4 parcels out on Ocean Street Extension. We're gonna build some houses out there. You want to help us make them green?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, sure." He's gonna do McMansions because I know this guy, but I guess green McMansions are better than standard McMansions. So sure, I'll help him make them. And without getting into the 3 or 5 minute story, I ended up acquiring all 4 parcels. And someone told me about Ocean Street Extension 15 years ago or something. They said, "Oh yeah, there's this amazing place. It's like you're out in the country, but you're 2 miles from downtown." And I said, "There's nothing like that." They said, "Go check it out." So I walked out there, and when I arrived at the land that my home is on now, I looked at my friend and I said, "If I could live anywhere in Santa Cruz, that would be it." And I later ended up building my home there.
That's cool.
That's
beautiful.
That's juicy.
Yeah.
That's just beautiful, Karsten.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear that. I read that story twice now, but I can hear it 5 more times and still get, because it lands, you know, it's just like, because you saw and then made it happen.
Yeah, I mean, but it was a miracle. I mean, it didn't, the way it happened, it was clearly a miracle.
But you took see, there's the darkness again. You took a chance stepping in the darkness, right? I don't know how this is going to turn out, right?
It's ease with uncertainty and knowing, just having that feeling that this is right, and it's that faith and trust.
Right.
And absence of fear.
Wow.
And it came with some lessons, including one of my neighbors suing me, which was one of the most painful,
really
time-consuming, and expensive aspects of my life so far. And now that neighbor and I are like that.
Interesting.
You converted. You converted
So
it.
you worked through it all.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
Thank you, Carson. I think Ocean Street Extension too is like one of those true Santa Cruz areas still. You know, there's parts of Live Oak and out in Aptos and up in the where you are, Annie, was
I love mine.
sacred land to me. And then they
Sacred
built
to
that
me.
little community, but the little community they built sort of honored the earth.
It
You know, it
does.
felt like they weren't
It's beautiful.
intrusive. Have you seen that community up on Graham Hill where the horse stables are?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We did it when I lived in
Woods
the-
Cove,
this
what's it
my
called?
house,
Woods
Woods
Cove?
Cove.
Oh, yeah, of course.
They did a pretty good job
It's
up
good.
there, you know.
My
Like,
house looks like we're in Italy. It's totally a little Italian oasis, and I'm remodeling it to be. Oh, it's gonna be the best thing I've ever created so far. And I designed a lot of houses, and I got a dream. Oh,
okay,
my-
wait. I'm gonna end this in a minute. So I'm gonna end with this Austrian guy popped in. This man I met years ago, and he had this theory that we don't have to throw out the modern world. We don't have to throw out the old world. And he lived in the mountains of Austria, and they had the internet and they had all the modern technology, but then they were still living close to nature. And he said, I think that's where we need to go, is combining the best of both. And that's kind of what I'm going to leave it with. Is it's not an either or world. The divine works with both and. And what you just brought up is an example of that, right? We work within the system of bureaucracy we have to some degree, and then we sometimes miracles are created just by bypassing or doing our best with divine timing and people and synchronicities, right? So I'm sure that people watch this on YouTube. I watch the analytics now, and there's like 20 to 50 people that watch it a week, and the average view time is 20 to 30 minutes, which is pretty good. So this was a long one, though. I think it was over an hour of sharing, but there are people that watch this, and one woman comments, that people comment, and so like if your emotions were a flavor, someone commented and said she was feeling bitter. Ricky G. Thank you, Ricky G. So on that note, we're going to end tonight's talk, the Day of the Light, and let's see, 20,
Sweet.
maybe 20 examples of how we live in the light.
That's a great idea.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,